According to the CDC, almost 1.5 million Americans attempted suicide in 2018. Could reaching out person to person have made a difference? Lee Cowan has a survivor's tale.
Every moment is appreciated. Every millisecond is grabbed onto.
You never take life for granted.
No, are you kidding me? No way.
By most accounts, Kevin Hines shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be anywhere, for that matter.
Look at this city.
At age 19, he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge.
I remember the fall vividly. 25 stories, 75 miles an hour, 4 seconds.
Although the fall shattered his back, he survived. He had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder at age 17. But on that day, in September of 2000, it just all became too much.
The night before was filled with so much agony, so much pain.
What was going through your mind?
I had been dealing with this diagnosis for 2.5 years. My greatest mistake was lying to everybody who loved me, believing that I was their greatest burden. And if I didn't die by my hands, that it would ruin their life.
The sense of loneliness, he says, was unbearable.
All I wanted was for one person to see my pain and say something kind.
But you couldn't reach out. You
I
wanted
could
them
not.
to reach
I
out.
could not reach out. I needed someone to reach in.
Just one person stopped him on the bridge that day, a passing tourist who only asked him to take her picture.
She walked away. I said, "Nobody cares." The voice in my head screamed, "Jump now," and I did. If one person had showed me an ounce of care, I would not have jumped off that bridge.
Could it really be that easy? Is a simple expression of concern enough to cut through the darkest recesses of a suicidal mind? Turns out some long-forgotten research from a psychiatrist named Dr. Jerry Motto at the University of California, San Francisco says yes. Motto had served in World War II, and he never forgot the impact of writing and receiving letters while he was overseas. They made him feel more connected. And that gave him a very simple idea.
If you know that you are going to make a connection and that you can communicate that you care, that's all that's important.
That is the fuel for wanting to live.
Chris Asimos and the woman who would later become Dr. Motto's wife, Pat Conway, were young researchers back in the 60s when Motto put together a team to take what was then a pretty unconventional dive into suicide prevention.
How was suicide treated by the healthcare professionals back then?
Not well.
No?
I think all too often the physician thought that this was looking for attention.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was not good.
Dr. Motto theorized that, like him during the war, if people somehow felt more connected in the days after being released from a psychiatric facility, one of the riskiest times for suicide, that might just be the tether that holds them to life. So he devised a research study involving patients who had been hospitalized for suicide and depression and had refused follow-up care. Between 1969 and 1974, he sent half of the patients a series of what he called caring letters. The other half, the control group, got nothing.
And what was in the letters?
That we're just communicating our caring and concern.
So it truly was just a reaching out with no...
Just we care.
Yeah, very simple.
That's all. We care.
Probably a lot of people thought, that's a bit silly. That's not going to work.
We heard people saying, "Oh, you're kidding. One letter is going to make a difference, or a series of letters."
But it did make a difference. They actually started getting letters back.
Getting this letter lightened me very much. It is beautiful to get a letter from you.
Your note gave me a warm, pleasant feeling. Just knowing someone cares means a lot.
There was one response, however, that stood out above the rest.
Holy moly!
What Dr. Motto called the bingo letter, because it was a hint that they really were getting through.
You are the most persistent son of a bitch I've ever encountered. So you must really be sincere in your interest in me.
But proving the letters were actually preventing suicide would mean scouring California's death records housed in Sacramento.
We would talk about bracing ourselves for the reality that we might find names of patients that we had seen.
What they found was nothing short of remarkable. In the first 2 years after leaving the hospital, the suicide rate of those who received the motto-carrying letters was about half the rate of those who did not.
He showed that a simple intervention, or any intervention, could prevent suicide, and that's enormous.
Ursula Whiteside is a clinical psychologist and researcher at the University of Washington School of Medicine, who says Motto's research was indeed a breakthrough. And yet,
I feel like in some ways people didn't notice.
If it's this significant, why?
So probably a lot of reasons. One being like the stigma around mental health, how small the field was at the time. And I also think that he didn't go out and push his message, although I really wish that he had.
suicide rates in this country have now hit their highest levels since World War II. The Centers for Disease Control report there are now twice as many suicides as homicides. That's despite the tens of millions of dollars being spent for prevention.
This is totally different. It's the cost of the stamps and the cost of the card. This is radical if you think about it in comparison to what we've been doing.
For almost 2 decades now, Whiteside has been sending versions of the motto letter out to her patients, like Shannon Lucas, who had been suffering from suicidal thoughts.
I really wanted a different approach. I'd had previous therapy and counseling experiences, but it felt a little stale.
And in all those years, nobody had ever tried this with you?
No. It was make your appointment, show up, see you next time. Yeah, there was no in between.
Instead of sending caring letters, though, through the mail, Whiteside sent Lucas caring text messages.
She's telling me what she's been doing. I write back, "You're on fire," and send an image of a woman blowing fire.
Classic Ursula.
Not to take anything away from your text, but they weren't these big, deep thoughts, right?
No, they were warm and engaging and comforting and sincere. Instead of just staying in the same mode of being cut off and shutting down, through her messages, I was able to connect with someone.
Well, loneliness is killing us. Why wouldn't we be reaching out to the person who's disappeared off Facebook, or maybe the friend who just isn't acting themselves?
Dr. Motto died in 2015 at the age of 93. He lived long enough to see a few other people picking up on his long-forgotten idea. The CDC, for example, now recommends caring contacts, and healthcare professionals all across the country are also sending out colorful postcards with positive messages to those at risk for suicide. Remember Kevin Hines?
The caring letters that Jerry Motto created.
Well, he now travels the country talking about suicide prevention and the role of caring letters. He knows firsthand of their power because he got one himself.
It wasn't about my mental illness. It was telling me that I'm a good person and that I matter.
How can that have that big a difference, that big an impact?
Oh my God. Showing you care about someone, not saying it, showing it, is tangible. When it's tangible, it means more. So, the one thing we know that does work, we better be using it.